So some transfer updates. So Chelsea have had £65 million offer to Bournemouth for their midfielder Scott rejected. For them, I think Scott is worth around £80 million. So it is expected now that £65 million have been rejected, that Chelsea are going to go back and come out with an improved bid if they really want to sign this Scott. But if you ask me, signing this court is not for the first team, because I'm just looking at the Chelsea team and looking at who this court is going to bench. You look at the Enzo Fernandez and you look at the Moses Caicedo. These are two strong world-class midfielders in that Chelsea midfield. So signing Scott is like a backup, so that maybe in case of injury or something happens, then Scott can come in and replace that player. So for if Chelsea now goes ahead to sign him for £80 million, do you think that they will not want to start him, especially for that price tag? So it is left for Chelsea now to decide if they really want to come back with an improved bid for Scott or not. Now, this is the same Scott that Manchester United were going for before they even signed the Tielemans. It was Scott that they were going for, but the amount of money that Bournemouth was calling was way above what Manchester United believe he's worth. So Manchester United believe that Scott is not worth more than £60 million. And for them to reject 65 from Chelsea shows you that these people are not ready to budge. In fact, they even want Scott to remain in the team for next season. So Bannerman wants Scott to be part of their plans going into next season, because I think their defenders and they have left them. So they don't want to really sell that Scott. That is what I'm just seeing. Because you cannot have just one breakthrough season and you are now worth £80 million. You see, this is where we are killing transfers, especially in England. Somebody will just have one breakthrough season and his price tag will skyrocket. What happens to consistency? What happens to performing to back season or 3 seasons in a row before going for that price tag? This is where transfer window is dead, if you ask me, in England. Anyway, let's see if Chelsea returns with an improved bid for Scott. Then on the part of Manchester United, you see, Manchester United has some targets that they are looking at now. Manchester United, they have signed Tielemans and Andre Santos from Chelsea. But these two midfielders are more like eights. They don't have that natural sweeper defensive midfielder. They don't have that number 6 yet. And the two players that they are going for that tick that balls, one, Carlos Baleba of Brighton, two, Manu Kone of AS Roma, that is the France midfielder. So these two players are more likely suited to that sweeper defensive midfield role, especially Carlos Baleba, who have the Premier League experience already. If you talk of Manu Kone, I think he has suffered a lot of injuries lately, and he cannot be trusted that once he just comes into the Premier League that he will hit the ground running immediately. So this is where Manchester United are to negotiate with Brighton. But Brighton are holding out for £90 million for Carlos Baleba. And that is way above Manchester United budget. You see, the club, Manchester United, have decided that they don't want to overpay again for players, that they are going to be paying the right valuation of players. So if they see that Brighton and Hove Albion are trying to rip them off by putting Carlos Baleba £90 million, then Manchester United may go for other targets. Of course, you saw how they signed Andre Santos and Tielemans. They were not linked to them initially. They just swung into action and signed this player. So Manchester United may be secretly holding talks with another player, but if they go and sign another player who is not still a natural defensive midfielder, then it is problem, because Casemiro have left now to Inter Miami. And you know the kind of midfielder Casemiro is, that sweeper midfielder who can move into tackles and shield the back four. So you need that kind of midfielder if you must go far in the champ. Manchester United are playing 4 competitions: Champions League, Premier League, Carling Cup, and FA Cup. So they need that defensive midfielder, especially in the Champions League and Premier League. In the Carling Cup and the FA Cup, maybe Andre Santos can do justice in those competitions, but you need the best in the Champions League and in the Premier League. So Manchester United should be looking at signing that sweeper, the defensive midfielder who can confidently shield the back four. Of course, you know that Martinez and Delete of the two defenders for Manchester United can't really stay fit. So Manchester United may be making use of young stars like Lenny Euro, Eddie Heaven, alongside maybe the experienced Harry Maguire. So you need that defensive midfielder who can confidently shield these boys if you want to be successful. Then, apart from the defensive midfielder, Manchester United need that backup striker, or should I say, a more experienced striker anyway, because Benjamin Sesko is still a young player and he will be needing to learn from an experienced player, especially going into Champions League football. So they still need that experienced striker. And Danny Welbeck we may have ticked that box, but I don't think Manchester United see him as somebody they can sign right now. That is that for that. Then for the part of Arsenal, you see, the reports reaching me now that Arsenal have agreed personal terms with Newcastle midfielder Bruno Gomes. You see, I think this Bruno Gomes have been linked to Arsenal almost all summer. And I'm beginning to wonder why Arsenal have not even really made that bid to Newcastle yet. Because Sandro Tonali have gone to Tottenham Hotspur for £100 million. Now, if they sell Bruno Gomes, I wonder the midfielder they will use to replace these people. Because Newcastle are a top team now in England, and they'll be looking to qualify back for the Champions League that they missed this season. And they're not selling their key players. So how will they do it? Anyway, let's see how it goes. Arsenal are linked to Bruno Gomes, and it is likely that they will sign this midfielder before his transfer window runs out. Of course, with Arsenal's midfield of Declan Rice, the Zubimendi, they still need that backup energetic midfielder. And that is where Bruno Gomes comes in. Of course, Arsenal are going to try to defend the league title they won last season. And they are going to do it with the squad depth that they have because they already have squad depth and they are likely to even add to the squad depth that they have. So that is that for that.